How's it, Team Easy, and welcome to today's EasyProperties webinar. I'm more excited than ever to be hosting it this morning because we are joined by one of our brilliant users. And I must say, it's not difficult to find a brilliant user amongst our hundreds of thousands of engaged community. But I'm particularly excited that we joined this morning by Yvette Moyo. Before we get to Yvette, I just want to say a big thanks to Llewellyn and his team. Llewellyn is standing in front of our studio screen. So Llewellyn, can we just have a little bit of a
Good morning, Carl.
How's it? So this is the man behind the scenes with his team who runs the webinar. So I just wanted to say a big thanks to Llewellyn, upping the technology. As you can see, we've got a studio, green screen studio now. So expect bigger and better things from Rupert. This will be the last time you see him looking like an alien wearing funny earphones sitting in a boring office. Next time we'll have him.
Thank you so much, Carl.
Good.
And thank you to all our viewers every week. We really appreciate all your support.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're over to Yvette Moyo. And
Hi.
How's it, Yvette? Welcome.
I'm good, thanks, and yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, when we were just doing our technical sound check, I asked you if you're excited, but can you tell our community, are you excited?
Hi, guys. I am so excited. I can't contain my excitement.
Well,
I just hope that I don't bite my tongue because I am so excited.
You're amongst friends, so you can make no mistakes. So that's 100% fine. So
okay.
I also want to say to our users, because Yvette came to us via Standwa, who many of you will know because he is the man that handles the questions. Standwa was not with us this morning because sadly he's had a death in the family. And I want, on behalf of the Easy community, send our condolences to Standwa's family and all others in the community that have suffered loss during this time. Family and health always comes first. Standwa is sad to miss hearing you, Yvette, because he was raving about you. So firstly, tell us, how long have you been an EasyEquities user?
Oh, okay. So I joined EasyEquities 2018, sorry. So when I joined, I was clueless about investing. Then I stopped. Then this year I decided, let me go back. Let me just be serious about finance and investing. So I came back a month ago. That's when I started really being interested. Even completed the EasyEquities Academy, and then I came across EasyProperties.
And that is one of the things I love about you, your Twitter handle. And for those who want to follow Yvette, she's Moyo_Yvette. You describe yourself as a future shareholder of BlackBrick.
Yes.
That's very cool.
So BlackBrick was your purchase. Why BlackBrick?
My first love was the one in Boksburg.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I didn't have money to invest. By the time I had money, I saw that it was overfunded. It was 100 and something percent. So like, no, let me not go that route. Let me just take Black Brick because it's in Sandton. It's beautiful. It's just amazing. I think it's better than the one in Cape Town. So I just had to go for it.
That sounds fantastic. And you're exhibiting a lot of traits of our users, which is, doing the research, checking it out, talking to the community. And I must tell you, you're a big inspiration to many of us because it gives us a great kick to see how smart the EasyEquities investors are. So your job today, please, Yvette, is that you and I are going to be asking Rupert Finnemore some questions. And Rupert, as you know, heads up EasyProperties. And our job is to make sure that he answers all the questions that the community wants to ask. Okay. So, Rupert, are you happy and ready to join us?
Yeah, absolutely. How are you, Yvette?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Could you please pronounce your name again?
It's Rupert Finnemore.
Rupert.
Yeah.
Is that
like
right?
Rupert the bear.
I'm really bad at pronunciation. Please forgive me if I say it wrong.
Not at all.
Okay.
I've been called all sorts of names in the past. Some have got to do with my name and some have got to do with my behavior. And mostly the names that I get called are actually, funny enough, by Charles Savage and Coral Nolte. One day I'm gonna post some screenshots of the names that those two call me, like just generally during the week.
Before I call Rupert more names, Yvette, let's ask him a couple of questions. So what do you want to know from Rupert? Go for it.
Anything related to EasyProperties, right?
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Okay. Nothing is off the topic. Go for it.
Okay, so I saw the poll that was posted on the Twitter page. So you're asking people with which other properties would they be interested in, right? So yes. My question is, will the success of the 4 listed properties currently determine which other types of properties you guys are going to add?
Yes, certainly. Obviously what we're busy doing at the moment is we are, through offering these properties, I think we're getting quite a good sense of what our investors are interested in. And yeah, obviously the success of those will have an influence of what we offer back into the community as an investment. But there's that age-old saying is, it's all about making assumptions and things like that. So it's very easy for us to also sit here in the office and say, oh, well, look, all the kind of investment money has gone there, and therefore our users are interested in X. That is obviously an assumption, and it might be a correct assumption, but I think it's really important that we continue to engage with the community and actually ask questions and kind of discover the interests, that kind of thing. That's hence why Standwa and Lesedi would have sent out that poll the other day. But yes, of course, that people vote with their wallets in this instance. If there are properties that don't succeed, we need to understand why that is, what information should we be sharing better. The successful properties, what is it about those properties that interests our investors, and things like that. So the short answer is yes, and that was a bit of other detail as well.
All right. So my next question is, for the oversubscribed properties, can't you mute or black out that option for people to keep on investing, so that it can give other properties a chance to be funded? Or do you think that is gonna mess up with our rights as investors to choose what we like?
So Yvette, that's a great question. And before Rupert answers it, I'm going to split it into 2 because there are lots of people in the community that are asking it. So for the existing 4 properties, we're going to talk about what happens with the oversubscribed ones. And then Rupert can chat about what some of the future plans are relating to subscriptions. So with the existing properties, we're going to be sending out some information to you and the other investors tomorrow, which Stunt was done, which will explain exactly what happens if you have subscribed to a property that's oversubscribed. So what will happen to your investment. And simplistically, in my basic language, if the property is double the amount oversubscribed, then each one of us will only get half our investment, and the rest of our money will be returned to us, and we can use it elsewhere on the EasyEquities platform. So we'll still be able to invest in the property, but just not at the amount that we originally asked for.
Okay.
But there are many users like you and me who are pissed off with Rupert because now we invest in a property and then we get diluted. So you're right. Let's find out what he's doing to fix it. Rupert.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer the second part of your question first, Yvette. Yeah, I think it would be unfair just to kind of hide those properties away. One's obviously always tempted to try and encourage guys to invest in some of the other properties that are have still got some opportunities to invest. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a currently as it sits, it's an open opportunity, and we obviously gave access to the early guys who applied for early access first, and they got in first. But yeah, so yes, guys are able to continue to invest in those. What we've decided to do going forward is that in this next collection of properties that we are going to be offering on the platform, we've updated the prospectus a bit, and obviously we'll highlight this as well when it's ready to go live. But what we've decided to do is when a property gets to 120% in terms of oversubscription, we may then close that offer period. You know, obviously we will give a 3 days notice. So we'll send out a notification and say, listen, guys, to all the investors, property X has now hit 120%. We're going to be closing down the offer period in 3 days. If you want to continue to invest, you better do so now. And so there are a number of different ways that one can structure these offer periods, but we're going to try this one next because it has been quite a common bit of feedback that's come from the community. You know, like I put in 1,000 Rand into Green Reef Village. We're going to hit 200%. I'm only getting 500 Rands worth of investment. You know, what a pity. And obviously the other 500 Rand gets returned. So we're going to try it this way for the next time, 120%, and then we may close it. We may not. We may keep it open, but we are going to have the option to close it. At the moment, we don't have the option to close it because it's set out in the prospectus that it will be open from for that whole 30-day period. And if we want to close an offer period, we actually need to file another supplementary prospectus into the CIPC, and it gets quite complicated. So we're going to try it this way for the next property. And then, yeah, Carl, you're quite right in terms of the oversubscription, the first part of the question. Unfortunately, that's exactly how it works. So again, you put in 1,000 Rand, the property is oversubscribed by double. It means everyone gets half of the shares that they asked for and gets the balance of their money returned. So those are the kind of two parts of the question.
And Yvette, again, why it's a good question you raise is, as you know, we started property because our users wanted it, and we're co-creating this with you and all the other investors. So your input and your questions help us design what we do going forward. So that's great. But your next question, you're doing great. So next one.
Okay, my next question is, we all know that the property sector wasn't doing so great. So do you think it was a good idea for you guys to launch EasyProperties during the pandemic?
That's a great question. And the first thing I want to tell you about, I've been watching this documentary on Netflix about Lance Armstrong. And obviously, I mean, you know, for people who don't know anything about cycling, obviously he's an amazing athlete. He was a cancer survivor. He used to whip everyone's butts at the Tour de France. Amazing athlete. I mean, it turned out that obviously he was, taking performance enhancing drugs and stuff. So that's maybe a poor example. But one of the things which resonated with me is that he used to say, like, he loves it when it's snowing and freezing, because that just gives him an opportunity to go out and train, and knowing that his kind of opponents wouldn't be training. There's no ways that when it's freezing cold and full of snow that the other guys are training. And that was an opportunity for him to get out ahead of the market. And so if I think about that analogy, launching this business in the time of Corona, I mean, all of us who've been involved have been kind of doing this behind our computers at home and all over the place. So it's amazing to be able to launch this business there, then during that time. And then the second part is, in terms of the property market, there's also that saying, never waste a good crisis. And so the fact that the property market is a bit tricky at the moment means that there actually are really good opportunities from a couple of points of view. I mean, we know that prices are actually under pressure. They for quite a while there haven't been that many buyers out in the market, and so with normal supply and demand, that puts downward pressure on prices. And so for us as a collective of investors to get together and try look out for really good opportunities, it's a really good time to buy. If one kind of considers the returns that one gets, there's also a lot of information out in the market around how there's a bit of downward pressure on rental prices. Obviously, people are sometimes struggling to pay their rent. Landlords are having to make deals with their tenants in these times as well. That obviously puts pressure on returns in terms of a property investment. But if one is able to secure those properties at good prices, at better than kind of market prices or what the market has been offering in the last while, that kind of evens out a bit. You're getting your property for less, you kind of getting a slightly more lower return on what it would have been. But because of all of that, it's actually a really good time to buy and a good time to invest.
Cool. So that's a very long answer to your question, Yvette. And for me, I think the summary is that investors like you and me that have taken this opportunity to invest when perhaps others might think it's a bad time could be good, especially because property is a medium to long-term investment. It's not, it's not a quick in and out. So in theory, we're getting in at a time where property prices are at a bit of a discount. There's the valuations on our site. And I think, Yvette, what you might find interesting before you ask your next question, as a black brick investor, there are 3,395 other individual black brick investors. So there are 3,396 of you that have bought a piece of black brick. And, I think you guys are going to look back in years to come, because that's the property that has the most individual investors of the four.
Yay.
And then our Cape Town property has also got over 3,000 individual investors. And so it's interesting to see how many people have chosen black brick. Of course, I'm very fond of the Fitzgerald, and we've still got a little bit of time to up it there. Standwa and I are passionate about the Fitzgerald, so we'll see. But next question.
Just on that note, what's really interesting for me as well, you look at all those numbers of the individual investors. The actual number of investments is greater than the number of investors in every single one of these cases, which means, like me, whatever, I had 100 Rand when we launched. I bought in at all the properties, but it's obviously been payday now as well. So I've bought another small amount in each of these properties, but all of our investors are buying shares more than once, which is also interesting.
Absolutely. Yvette, next question, please.
Okay. Yesterday you mentioned that the properties were evaluated during the pandemic, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, will the value of each property change once the pandemic saga is over?
Well, hopefully. You know, the property market, and I think all these markets will return to some kind of normalcy once the pandemic is over. Again, you know, all of the markets have been hit in various segments by this pandemic. So when it's over, you know, hopefully we will return back to a kind of normal trading. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's in the industry like about 2 days ago, and they're in the business of selling property, you know, residential property, and they are selling up a storm. They're not quite at their pre-pandemic numbers, but the demand is certainly returning, and they're doing a hell of a lot of sales. And so that points to a good recovery in the market. The fact that these valuations were done during COVID, it must have a positive benefit for us post-COVID. You know, that's the nature of also capital growth. There are a number of different ways to look at the potential of the capital growth. You know, you can look at what we've paid versus what the market had paid. We can look at what we've paid again against what these independent valuations have paid, and the kind of difference points to what the capital growth is going to be. And in some of these instances, like the Fitzgerald and the Rockefeller, those discounts are 17 and 18%. You know, so it gives a good indication. But like anything in life, value and these kind of prices is determined by a willing buyer and a willing seller. So a property or a share, or, you know, there's all sorts of fancy financial ways to work out the value of these things. But ultimately, it's only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it. And so, you know, that's also one's just got to kind of bear in mind as well. But definitely, the signs are really good for a recovery in the property market.
Thanks. Yvette, are you happy with Rupert's answer?
I am so happy.
Good, because if his answers aren't as good as your questions, you must challenge him. But next question, please.
I will. Okay, the next question is, let's say the property with the lowest funding doesn't meet the deadline. Is it possible for you guys to extend is it IPO?
Yeah, IPO.
Right, yeah.
So we'll answer that in two ways again, Yvette. We'll do it for the current crop, and then Rupert can talk about the future. So for the current properties, what's going to happen is, because Rupert has got a soft heart, I was told yesterday by Stantwa that a decision has been made that people will in fact still be shareholders even if the full funding has not been met. So Rupert can confirm this for us now and correct me or not, and talk a little bit about that. And secondly, for the current round, we can't extend because of the point Rupert made earlier about the prospectus. We'd have to file a supplementary. So for the current period, it's not going to be extended. But Rupert, fix what I've said and tell us about future plans.
Yeah, so that's not correct, actually, but a nice idea anyway. At this,
I tried.
Yeah. Carl, you've got to keep an eye on him, Yvette. You really do.
So what happens to us if we're in that property and it doesn't get filled? What's going to happen?
Well, in this scenario, if it doesn't get filled, we've still got a week. I'm hoping that post payday now, there's going to be another round of investment into that property. But if it doesn't get filled, we don't meet our targets, then the deal just it lapses, and we give the property back to the developers, and we refund everyone their money back into the EasyProperties wallet.
So the community decides, and if the community decides a property is worth it, we buy it for everybody. And if the community decides not, then so I've got to get all my mates and family to invest in the Fitzgerald if I want to own my peak.
And it's so interesting, you know. There's always information behind stats and things like that. I mean, I was looking at the portal this morning. At the moment, the Fitzgerald is sitting at about 31%, which again is surprising to me. And we need to unpack why that is. It's, you know, it offers good returns, a great area, all of that stuff. But if you actually have a look at the number of individual investors, there's 1,594 individual investors who have bought into that property. So it's a lot of people. But at the moment, if we don't reach our funding target there, the property gets returned and people get their money back. If it gets to a point, what we can do to extend an offer, again, you know, it's regulatory stuff. If we had to get like quite close, theoretically, we could extend the offer, but again, it requires to file a supplementary prospectus, and you've got to give notice to all the people who've applied for shares, potentially allow them to change their mind because it's a material change to the offer. So it gets quite complicated. But yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. And Yvette, you might also be interested to know that in the couple of weeks that we've been open, the EasyInvestors have put in just over 16 million Rand. And why we can be proud of that, it's because not any of us are putting in millions. It's all of us putting in a few $100. And Rupert was telling me that the average investment is about 1,200 Rand. And we're very proud of that because it means that we really are giving people who don't have the ability to buy a property for millions a way to invest. And so people mustn't be scared. You know, there's no minimum. There's nothing, you know, it's one of the principles of EasyEquities. So whether you can afford 50 Rand or 100 Rand or 1,000 Rand or 10, whatever it is for you, people must just get their foot in the door, and we're very proud of them when they do.
Yeah, and Coral, I just want to say that that's probably the stat that I'm most proud of, if I can use that word. You know, all of the 16 million is lacquer. You know, that's almost like a marketing number. The well over 5,000, close on 6,000 people, that's lacquer. But the mere fact that the average investment size is 1,200 Rand, for me, that ticks the box, the EasyEquities box around democratizing investment. And that's the stat which I kind of love the most.
Cool. Thank you, Yvette. Back to you for your next question.
All right. My next question is, I see that a lot of estimations have been made, right? In the prospectus, possible profit and all that. Yes.
Yeah.
So now my question is, do you already know how much each share is gonna cost once everything starts rolling, or what really determines the price of each share? Since each share is 1 Rand for now. So what determines how much it's gonna cost in the future?
No, so Yvette, that's a great question, which Rupert can spend some time answering now, because, and that's why I'm so appreciative of you coming onto this webinar this morning and asking the questions that we all want to ask, because I read some of the FAQs and I'm not always sure I understand it. And so when this IPO ends now, what value is it going to be? So if I've put in 100 Rand, Rupert, what is it worth at the end of this period? What's it going to be worth in a year's time? How do I sell it? So I think, Yvette, we can get Rupert to spend a little bit of time on not only how it will be valued, but when can I sell? How can I sell? To whom can I sell? So over to you, Rup.
Cool, thanks. And that is a really good question, Yvette. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. So just forgive me kind of rattling on. As you know, it's 1 Rand a share at the moment. The target that we raise represents 70% of the purchase price of all of those properties. The balance we get through a traditional bond through a bank. But obviously at the moment, the shares are essentially worth R1. There are a number of ways that we, and you'll see, we're busy working on the kind of monthly statements now so that people can see what these things are. But I'm glad that you picked up on some of those words that we've used, because we've chosen them very carefully. You know, these are indicated, as an example, we're buying at a 17% discount. So it indicates a really good capital growth. It points to a really good capital growth, but obviously there's no guarantee, because only at the point that that property is sold do we know exactly what it's worth. You know, buying and selling property is a negotiation. It's not like you walk into Checkers and you go and buy a loaf of bread for 10 Rand, and you get to the teller and say, look, I'm only prepared to pay $8. You know, when you sell property, it's done at an asking price, and there's a negotiation that happens. So that's why we can't say it will definitely be worth the 10 million Rands worth of property that we've collectively bought in one of the properties is definitely worth 12 million Rand. We don't know. And so we will only know for sure at the end of the investment period, between 5 and 7 years, when we sell those assets. Then we'll know exactly what the growth has been. But there are a number of ways that you can look at what an indicative value is. One is you can look at the value of the returns that you're getting. So if you're getting, I'm just going to use a very simple example because I'm an ex-English teacher, not an ex-finance teacher. But if you are getting 10 Rands worth of income in your investment, then it would show that the value is, call it 200 Rand. And then you'll know what that growth might be. That's one way of doing it. And so that points to an example of value. Another one is to go and get these independent valuations. And these are done by professional valuators. They are totally independent, and we send them out, and they use a number of different methodologies to value a property. They look at what is sold like in the complex. They look at what's sold out in the neighboring areas. They look at similar kind of properties, values, all that kind of stuff. It's called a comparative market analysis. They do that. They look at kind of the income that other rental properties are offering, and then use that income to determine a value. So you'll actually see on our platform in those valuations, they give quite a range of values. So that's a second one. And then obviously the third is when you actually sell. So we will know that if a guy comes, we buy the property, it's 100 Rand for the total properties. It's 1 Rand a share. This valuator goes out and gives a valuation of 120 as 120 Rand. We know that an indicative, I just did the air parenthesis again. An indicative value is that it's going to be 1.20 Rand a share based on what this guy's independent valuation has been. But it's only a guide. And so that's going to be really important. Then obviously there's the kind of dividends that are going to get paid out. There's a way to value the shares against all of that. So the point is those are all just guide prices. Eventually, when we get to our first auction, and we can talk about that now, we will know exactly what that share is worth, because somebody would have bought and somebody would have sold at a price, and that's the value of the share at that time. And that, again, is like selling the property at the end. That's a definite price, and then we know what the kind of value is. The rest are kind of just guides, if that makes sense. When it comes to the actual auction period.
Can we just pause there? Yvette, any further follow-up or clarification there, or does that make sense to you? And if it doesn't, say, because happy to chat more.
Yeah, you must ask more.
No, it does make sense to me. Thing is, I prefer reading it more than listening, but then it makes sense to me. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, and
I'll commit to putting something together with some examples that we can ask Standwa to send out to the
FAQs.
community.
FAQs. There's Rupert. Because he's a little bit lazy, Yvette, we've got to give him work to do. So our support.easyproperties.co.za is full of good FAQs, and Rupert is always happy to add more. So I think, Rupert, if you can add some there with examples, it would be.
I will definitely do that. Yeah.
Because I find myself understanding it, but then tomorrow I'm confused again. So like Yvette, it would be good to reread it.
Great.
So
I'll do that.
Now I understand our valuations. And now you're going to explain to us auctions, which was an innovative idea that you guys came up with. So when do they happen, and how does that work?
Yeah, I think before we even get to that, I mean, the reason why we wanted to do that is because, you know, as I said in the in our Insta Live chat yesterday, EasyProperties has not been set up to buy and sell shares in properties in like a daily thing. This is a traditional property investment where we really want guys to invest for the medium to long term to really get the benefits of capital growth and all of those things. But we understand that things come up in people's lives, and one of the friction points is in a lot of these kind of property investments is getting access to your money when you need it. So this was specifically put together in the beginning as addressing this major friction point. And first of all, so around timing, we're aiming to do it round about once a quarter, where we'll hold one of these auction processes where people can either sell shares or buy more shares should they wish to. So around about once a quarter from a timing point of view. And then the actual auction process, if you want to read something incredibly detailed and specific and technical, have a look at the T's and C's on the platform. It's got an unbelievable amount of detail, exactly how it works. But like Carl, my head starts spinning after I'm about 3 paragraphs into it. So I'm going to just explain it from a high level here. There's basically 2 main phases that happen in the auction process. The first one is called price discovery. And that's exactly what we've been talking about, is how the value of these shares get determined. So, and this is kind of the auction part of the process. So everyone who wants to sell their shares or buy more shares goes onto the platform and starts listing. So I might say that I want to, first of all, it's important to note that this is a company buyback scheme. So basically what will happen is the company will buy shares from the people who want to sell and then issue more shares to people who want to buy, okay? But it will obviously only do that if there's someone who wants to sell their shares back and if somebody wants to get issued with more shares. Okay.
So Rupert, just to interrupt you there. So Yvette and I, we own 100 Rand in Black Brick. So at the first auction, Yvette and I decide, okay, now we want to sell 50 Rand of our investment. So we would say 50 Rand to the company, and then the company would say there's 50 Rand in Black Brick available if somebody wants to buy it. Is that right?
Kind of. There's one step missing, and that's the price of those shares. So what will happen is a vet will say, I bought 100 Rands worth of shares in Black Brick at 1 Rand a share. I want to sell 50 shares at 1 Rand 10 cents. So that's 55 Rand. So a vet is a seller at 1 Rand 10. And you know, there's all sorts of people have seen that it's a good investment and all of that stuff. They're getting good returns. And then Carl's on the other side, and he's looking to buy shares, but he's only willing to pay, because he's tight, he's only prepared to pay 1 Rand and 5 cents. And then there's everyone kind of loads their, if I can call it bids and offers. It's not exactly that, but loads what they would like to the company to buy their shares back and at a price. And then people also put down what they would like to get new shares at, an amount of shares at a price. Okay, so that makes sense. So in the one column, you've got all the people looking for the company to buy back the shares. And the other column, you're looking at people who are wanting to get issued with more shares. And then that's the price discovery. Then, you know, a fancy algorithm has a look at all of that stuff and basically says that the auction price, based on what everyone is looking to buy and sell and volumes and all of that, is going to be R1.09, call it. Okay. Then that's price discovery over. Then we know that the price that has been set through this process is R1.09. Okay, that's phase one. Phase two is then this application phase. And again, there will be lots of time to do this. This whole period is going to take 10 days because this is not just a quick buying and selling of shares, all of that. You know, this is property and it works a bit slower, and you know, people must give due consideration to all these things. So there's time to consider all of this stuff. The second phase is the application phase. We will go to Yvette and say, Yvette, you wanted to sell 50 shares at R1.10. The auction price that has been determined is R1.09. We will then go to Carl and say, you were looking to buy shares at R1.05 or to get issued with more shares at R1.05, 50 shares of those. The auction price is R1.09. Do you want to continue? And Yvette will say yes, and Carl will have a look and say, yeah, well, that's actually a fair price, and he will say yes. And then the company buys back those shares and then issues new shares buys back Yvette shares and issues those shares to Carl. And see, Carl's just about to fall asleep. And so,
No,
yeah.
What do you think of that, Yvette? Do you think that's a good system? Does it make sense to you as an investor?
It does make sense to me because with the buying and selling, when you read about it, it seems complicated. But then when you actually do it, it's a simple process. Just click, and then it's done. So I think for now, I'm happy. I'm happy for now.
I mean, the other part is, of course, you know, there might be an auction price that gets determined of R1.09, and Yvette still has the option to say, well, listen, you know, I was offering my shares at R1.10. I don't want to sell at R1.09, so no, thank you. I won't sell it this time. You know, it might be the other way. The price that might get determined might be higher than what she was looking to sell those shares.
So can I summarize, and then you and Yvette, as our resident user expert, can correct me now. So I have bought now in the subscription period, and then we're going to have an auction. And just confirm, Rupert, when do you think the first auctions would happen?
Not within the first quarter after taking the property.
Cool. So for a couple of months after we've got the property in our hands, we keep our shares, and that's our price. So in you know, let's say 6 months from now, theoretically, the auction happens.
Well, 6 months from when we actually own the property.
Yeah. So I know, as Carl said, I want to sell. I will indicate my desire to sell some of my shares on the platform. I have a price in mind, and there'll be other users because we've got thousands of people who've bought, and some will want to sell and some won't. So we'll all say what we want to sell at, and other people will say that they want to buy. And then the clever algorithm works out the fair price of what that is, which is the phase one that you talk about, the price discovery. And then we actually go into a place where I do sell and others buy. So, great.
That's exactly right. The only thing to remember is that if you're selling, the company is actually going to buy those shares back.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to buy, the company will issue new shares to you on the other side.
Yeah. Now, an easy question for you, Rupert, before Yvette asks her difficult questions next. So now, Yvette and me, we're long-term investors. We don't want to sell, but can we make money in the interim? When you talk about dividends and stuff, how do we make money out of BlackBrick? So we both love BlackBrick. How are we making money out of BlackBrick for the next couple of years?
Okay. BlackBrick, there's a collection of units that we as a collective will own in the name of that SPV. We will rent out each of those apartments. There's a combination of long-term and short-term stays. There's a hotel aspect to Black Brick, which is also quite lacquer.
So Yvette and I are now shareholders, landlords, and hoteliers. Yvette, we're going to be all these things. I'm very excited.
You can actually write it on your Twitter profile.
Yeah, exactly. You're not just a shareholder now. You're a landlord and a hotelier. Okay, cool.
And I'm going to add that immediately after this.
Good. Okay.
So there'll be people renting out our apartments, either in a long-term or a short-term environment. There's a company that will collect all of that rent on our behalf. They will, again, as we said yesterday, they will collect all of that rent. They keep 15% on the side in case there's damage or vacancy or non-payment. You know, obviously each of our properties will have a deposit, which we use as security from the tenant. But in the case that there is some unforeseen circumstances, that's the 15% pool that we will use to look after our assets. But that money still goes to the investors if it's not used. So there's a company that will collect the rent, make payments of the water and lights, or that's for the tenants, but rates, taxes, all of that stuff. Whatever expenses our property company has got, there will be a net amount that gets left over that will go and get kept into the bank account. Once a quarter, a collection of all of that net income will get declared a dividend and get paid out to all of our investors once a quarter. So in that period, we are making money through collecting rent on our property assets for that period. At the end of the period, when we decide that, listen, we want to sell these apartments, between 5 and 7 years, we will sell that money, get all the money back once it gets transferred, and then we will pay out that capital back to all of our investors, and hopefully with a really solid capital growth. So it's kind of in those two ways. That's how we're going to be making money if you stay in for the long term.
Great. Yvette, another question from you, please. And then we've got a couple from the users, and then we've got a little surprise for you, Yvette. But go for your next question, please. And don't forget to unmute yourself.
All right. My next question is, could we please have, you said that having a demo account would be a waste of resources, right? Could we have like an academy where we learn more, like we did with EasyEquities for EasyProperties? Brilliant
idea.
Yeah, I'll answer that because it is a brilliant idea, and we've got a colleague called Tristan, Yvette. And in the couple of seconds since your question, Tristan's now already worked out how he can do that. He's our Mr. Fix-It and makes these kind of things happen. He's the brains with a few others behind our Thrive campaign and academy. And Bonolo, who hosted our Instagram live chat yesterday that you saw, is working on the academy. And as you saw, she's a brilliant presenter and super smart. So I think you've just nominated Bonolo and Tristan to come up with some serious stuff for us there, but it's a great idea.
I second the nomination.
Good. Right, I want to handle a couple of user queries. And we're going to start off by combining one of our questions, Yvette, with a little surprise for you. So COVID changed our plans. We wanted to have a bit of a launch party. And then I wanted to do a bit of a walk around one of the properties, socially distanced, wearing masks. But Rupert is a nerd and very conservative and scared. So Rupert said we can't do that. So what we want to do, because a couple of users have said, can we visit the properties? So I want to say that what we're keen to do, if regulations allow us, as spring kicks off, so come September time, and we're going to pick a date because we want to make sure that it's in people's diaries, and all things being equal, we'll have it. So the September the 4th, which is the first Friday in September, we are going to have a little party at Black Brick, Yvette, where you are going to have to host the community on our behalf with Rupert. So are you and Rupert happy on the 4th of September to buy us all some drinks at Black Brick?
Perfect.
I'm lanky.
Great.
Perfect.
We will organize that. And Standwa, who's supposed to not be on the webinar focusing on family matters, but him, Lesedi and Bonolo have said they are putting $500 into your EasyProperties account. They'll do that. So what property are you going to invest in now? Are you going to buy more Black Brick, or it's one of the others? Fitzgerald and Rockefeller have still got some space. What do you think?
Definitely the 2 remaining properties I am investing in. Thank you so much.
Good. Thanks,
Thank
Bonolo,
you.
and Lesedi. So Yvette, before we go on to some of the other questions, tell us a little bit about you. What do you do?
Okay, so I'm studying B.Ed. It's actually my first year with Northwest University. So I'm going to be a teacher
Teachers are the
soon.
best.
Yes, I know. I know. So I'm going to be a teacher very soon. I live with my mom, my son, and my brother. So yeah, at home. Okay, we're into business, but small businesses, fast food. And so the reason why I decided to join EasyProperties is because I want to break away from the food industry and try something else, try something new.
That's
So that's
amazing. I think your son is lucky to have such a good role model as a mum in terms of entrepreneurs. Now, he's obviously still young. How old is he?
He's very young.
No, but how young?
He's so young. He's just 6 months.
Okay. Now, as soon as I think give him another 3 months, by about 9 months, our CEO, Charles, will convince you that he's ready to start investing because Charles, alongside Warren Buffett, is convinced that it's never too young. And you might have seen some of the tweets that EasyEquities has put out. Rupert's been buying EasyProperties with his sons, and we love seeing our Easy community sharing these thoughts with their kids. So don't wait too long to get him started. It would be great. So that's good news.
Soon.
Great. So the questions that we haven't gotten to on the chat, you can go to support.easyproperties.co.za. You can look at the Easy Properties site, the prospectuses. And I think one of the things that Yvette's proved again today is that EasyEquities users are super smart. You don't need somebody to tell you what to do. You go and read it out, check it out, ask your questions, and it's all happening there. There was an interesting stat, Yvette, that the guy who founded EasyEquities, Charles, reminded listeners on 702. He did an interview on 702 this week. And it was a stat I hadn't heard in a while. And I actually had to check it because it was such a shocking stat. But when EasyEquities started in 2014, there were just a couple of hundred retail investors, i.e. normal people like you and me investing via JSE. Thanks to EasyEquities and other innovations, there are now hundreds of thousands. So you and the other users can really give yourself a pat on the back. You are trailblazers, and you are making it possible for the people, the generations who come after us, like your kids and Rupert's kids, they are going to reap the benefits. So you guys are pioneers. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Rupert and I, uncharacteristically, are going to give you the final word. I'm going to put you on the spot, but I know that I can. And we can tell everybody who's listened in, there was no brief. You and I met a couple of minutes before this webinar. There was nothing that you couldn't ask. There was nothing that you were supposed to ask. And you did such a brilliant job. So thank you very, very much. But the final word is going to go to you as you close the webinar for us, please, Yvette.
All right. Hi, everyone. Could you please, I'm not sure if this is wrong of me or not. Could you please invest in the 2 remaining properties? I don't want to experience what it's gonna be like if we don't get 100% funding for the other properties. So please, everyone, could you please, even if it's not your favorite, just do it for the sake of financial growth, please.
I'm putting my $100 in Yvette because my heart will be broken as well. So it's a great wish. Good luck with your studies.
Thank
have
you.
a fun time with your son. Stay safe. Thanks to all the users. Thanks, Rupert. And
Thanks, guys.
Good day, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.